Hi everyone. I've been toying with whether or not I should make a video at this time, but I know a lot of people have questions as to what's going on in the real estate market right now. Obviously, entering uncharted territory with this. First off, I just wanted to say thanks to all the frontline, real essential workers out there. Obviously, appreciated what you're doing. Um, we in real estate have been considered essential. Um, People still have to buy and sell houses, so that's something that we are tasked with doing. They obviously it is not business as usual, but we're still required, to help people who have to buy and sell. Um, how are we doing things right now? Essentially. People marketing their homes, basically are doing it all virtually. Um, I have not been showing homes, but I understand there are some showings going on, and certainly there's all kinds of precautions in play to make this happen. Questionnaires being filled out and things of the like to make it as safe as possible to show homes. Clearly, from what I'm seeing in watching the system, homes are still being showed and homes are still selling. Um, we are essentially not doing open houses anymore. I understand it sounds like there are the odd one that are doing open houses, but obviously frowned upon for obvious reasons. Um, we are still continuing with closings that have happened, prior to this all happening. And certainly that was a fear for some people who have already, purchased homes or sold their home. Would they close? And certainly at this point, it looks like everything is going ahead, not as normal, but at least these closings are able to happen. As long as the registry office is open, the banks are open, and the lawyers are open, and all this is happening virtually. One of the things that has come about, certainly a question has been for those buyers who've gotten laid off. Quite often, a mortgage company would, call up just before closing and make sure circumstances were the same as when they purchased a home. And we're hearing that at least for people with less than 20% down, an insured mortgage, the CMHC and the insurance mortgage insurance companies have made it a priority to be able to help the people who normally, if they were laid off, wouldn't have been able to close. They wouldn't have gotten a mortgage, and now there are systems in place that sounds like the majority of those people who've been laid off will be able to still get their mortgage and close the deals. There was also concerns if some of these institutions, the registry office, lawyers, banks, etc., maybe weren't open, would they be able to still close the deals? And there have been some title insurance companies that have been offering products that would it be able to delay the closing or help get through the closing time. So obviously lots of changes in what's going on that way. Sorry, I have a few talking points that I just want to make sure I get to. Certainly been monitoring, all the social media in the industry to try and stay current with what's going on, and monitoring our matrix system to get a sense of what's really happening out there. I know we're getting all kinds of experts coming out with predictions and forecasts of how we're going to come out of this and what's going to happen. Nobody really knows for sure. I mean, from my own perspective, certainly, it appears that in the long run we're probably going to have less buyers than we had before, and probably more inventory. The factors just kind of add up to that being the case coming out of this. And just as a a recap, basically for the last number of years, it's been a solid sellers market here in Waterloo region, and of course even the last 3 months, really, even just heading into this, call it a hyper inflated sellers market, with all kinds of bidding wars going on every day, all the time, offers coming in for anywhere 25, 50, 75, over 100,000 over the asking price, even up until the beginning of March. And quite frankly, in looking at the sales, we are still seeing some of that, but I'll talk about that in a minute. So that gives you a bit of background as to what's been going on in Waterloo region, prior to this, and certainly something where buyers, and you've probably seen in my previous videos, buyers extremely frustrated with what's going on, making lots of offers, losing out, having to put no conditions in offers, and basically be at the will of the whatever the seller wanted. So certainly my expectation coming out of this is that that's going to change. If we're looking at the matrix system, I just kind of recap what had happened last week. And as far as new listings, we had 200 new listings last week, of which 10% of them were relists, and that's something whereby people had put their house up for sale previously, and in this market there had been, or in the previous market, there had been different strategies as far as pricing below market value, and then getting bidding wars. And so I think what some of these sellers have seen over the last week is that that's not happening all the time like it used to, and so they're having to kind of go to plan B and relist at different prices, maybe further below the market, or maybe up around the market value that they anticipated in the first place. So so 200 listings for towards the end of March, considering that 10% of them are relists, I would say that that's down a little bit, and this is all for all of Waterloo region, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and the townships. We had 58 canceled listings last week, so these are people that had put their house up on the market, and for whatever reason, not getting showings, not getting the prices they wanted, took their house off the market. Now, some of those, of course, would have relisted, but 58 cancellations in a week is absolutely unheard of in the last 28 years. Occasionally, we would get maybe a few cancellations per week. Pending over asking price. So basically, houses that sold last week that went for over the asking price, and I'll save the the details and the charts and that sort of thing, but suffice to say, we're still seeing probably more than 65% of the sales that came in last week were over asking, which tells me these are still multiple offers going on even as of last week. I'm baffled by it. It's quite incredible, but that's the reality of what we're seeing, and continue to see even into sales that I saw yesterday. Certainly the number of sales are going down, and relative to, again, end of March, the sales are considerably down, which would be expected, but still the fact that we're having sales, and we're having sales that are going over asking price is mind-boggling to me. I know people have different arguments for that. Some will say, well, we're competing against less buyers than we were a few weeks ago, so therefore the timing's right, but given the total unknowns moving forward, I just find it interesting, to say the least, that this is still happening. Showings, we have a showing time app that we schedule all our showings, and that graph is just, the showings have plummeted, obviously, with hardly any showings happening these days at all, and showing, March 2019 versus March 2020. It's quite incredible when you see it, the graphic of it, as far as the stop in the showings. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. The Bank of Canada rate has essentially gone down almost nothing. They've dropped it as to try and help out here. But having said that, the interest rates really haven't. In fact, in some cases, interest rates have gone up. And for the mortgage companies, it's all about risk. So that's something that they're certainly looking at. I think everything's on the table, even as far as our appraisals and things that happen that way. It used to be, well, the banks would rubber stamp their appraisals essentially, and at least that's how I saw it. But now I think all bets are off on how things are going to be happening moving forward in this unknown time. Mortgage deferrals is something else I wanted to talk about, just as far as, we hear a lot about that as far as mortgage deferrals and that concept. And people just need to keep in mind, it's a mortgage deferral, so you will still have to make that mortgage payment. It's just going to add interest on at the end of the day. So it's something to think about when you're doing it. Obviously, some people will have to do this, but it's just something you want to do with all the information in place. So talk to your mortgage representative and make sure you know what you're doing and what can happen by taking out these mortgage referral steps. My other notes just was generally talking about things I'm hearing about again from different people, what's going to happen coming out of it. And again, I think a lot of it is just people are throwing out ideas and concepts and things like that, which again we don't really know. Some of them, certainly it's reasonable, the ideas, but I'd rather not really get into the whole speculation game. I think there are some certain things that will be happening, like I mentioned previously, but essentially I've just been advising at least all my buyer clients to proceed with caution. It's not to say that you can't buy something now, and especially if you have to buy something now, well then I guess that's what you have to do. But certainly beyond that, given the unknowns, I think it's really a proceed with caution type of environment right now, and try and make the best decision that you can, when it comes time. As far as sellers, again, if you don't have to sell, there's certainly a lot of reasons as to why not to put your house up on the market right now. Number one being safety and that sort of thing, but certainly much fewer buyers out there right now, and again, we understand that coming out of this, it certainly might be a much different environment for sellers, but I think that's something where they're just going to have to deal with that coming out of it and see what happens. But I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be having strangers coming through your home right now for viewings, especially given this environment. So I think as far as myself, technically as an independent contractor, I am a small business person as well. But I'll be fine through this, and I think I'm prepared that when we come out of this, certainly I expect to be very busy with both buyers and sellers. and so I think that's just what I'm expecting coming out of this. But for now, it's just sit back, stay home, and try and stay safe, and just stay on top of everything that's going on here. So apologize for the long video. Obviously, for those who stayed till the end, you've either got lots of time on your hands or you have a interest in this. But anyhow, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Thanks, and take care.